clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade, doing nothing.
What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves, of threatening ourselves with death.
Perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead in winter and later proves to be alive. Now I'll count to 12.
Our misdeeds constitute a veritable alphabet of unethical behaviors.
The offense of arrogance, bigotry, and cynicism, of deceit and egotism, flattery and greed, were haughty, pursued injustice, and indulged our jealousy. Some of us kept grudges, were liars, malicious, or narrow-minded. Others were obstinate or possessive, quarrelsome, rancorous, or selfish.
There was thoughtlessness, unkindness, violence, weakness of will, xenophobia.
We yielded to temptation and were zealous for questionable ends. In the middle of page 10, we have our prompt for singing Tzrichim Anachnu, which is number 6 in the hymnal section. The words may be a little bit unfamiliar, but many people have heard the traditional Avinu Malkeinu refrain, and that's really what the melody is. But it reflects more our priorities on making sure that we do the work required to improve the world rather than waiting for someone else to intervene and make that happen. Logan will read us reading responsibly on the second half of page 10.
For remaining silent when a single voice would have made the difference.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that we have struck out in anger without just cause.
For ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others.
Forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For losing sight of our unity.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For those and for so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of separateness.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We're at the top of page 11. All people try and fail. The wise learn to forgive and try again. We can be too slow to forgive others. We are long to remember injuries, to forget assistance.
Anger and memory have their place, and forgiveness does not require forgetting. We forgive by choosing not to avenge, by being open to second chances. Forgiving others brings us peace.
We can be too quick to forgive ourselves. We celebrate our successes and quickly explain away our failures. Dwelling on our shortfalls is not healthy, but neither is whitewashing them. Self-forgiveness requires honesty about the sides of ourselves we would rather not face.
Forgiving ourselves brings us peace.
Let us pause for a moment of true forgiveness. Let us forgive others, and let us forgive ourselves. Thank you, Logan, for leading us in the second part of our service. Our speaker for today is Joy Markowitz. Joy and her husband, Rick Eisen, have been members of Machar for more than 30 years. Their 2 children had bar mitzvahs with our congregations and are now themselves parents of young children. Joy has taken on many roles with Machar, including teacher, co-principal, committee member, board member, and board president, and as you no doubt noticed by the shortness of her walk to the microphone, she is a member of our choir, and she will speak today on our theme for the holidays this year of disquiet.
Good morning. This morning, I'd like to reflect on 2 other Yom Kippurs in my life. On Yom Kippur 2023, which was in September that year, and before the carnage of October 7th, I was thinking about the origins of my conversion to secular humanistic Judaism that had occurred 50 years prior. It was a conversion born of disquietude. Also on that Yom Kippur, I wrote a letter to an Israeli who I had met 50 years earlier and who lived with my family for a year. I had had little communication with him in recent years. The letter was meant to reminisce and recap 50 years. Back to 1973, when I was in Israel for my junior year of college. It was a beautiful golden afternoon in Jerusalem, sort of like today. The setting sun was reflecting on the buildings around me, creating hues on the native stone. There was an eerie calm as most vehicles had come to a rest for the next 24 hours. I was walking to the house of friends to spend Yom Kippur. We were planning a mellow evening that did not involve prayers and would likely involve food and hashish. I recall feeling a little weird and even guilty, as I had grown up in a conservative Jewish household. Never would I have spent Yom Kippur in this way. Then I began to see people hurriedly moving about and a few in military uniforms. That seemed strange to me, but as an American, I could not be sure what this meant on the holy day. When I arrived at the home of my friends, there was palpable tension, and one of the mothers who lived in Jerusalem was pacing around. All the Israeli men had been called into the reserves immediately. That's all we knew. Now, the Yom Kippur War now seems conventional and even tame after the nearly 2 years of the current brutal war and the associated humanitarian disaster. However, the Yom Kippur War triggered my disquietude about the state of Israel, as well as my disquietude about Jerusalem. During the Yom Kippur War, I spent a lot of time listening to the news, and I learned about the BBC. I was desperate to hear what was going on around me in my native tongue. I never turned to God or prayer, but instead I focused obsessively on the human beings I believed would put the world back into order. I recall putting my faith in Henry Kissinger, only to learn later he was not such a big help, and Golda Meir, who later resigned. In the weeks that followed, I gained a better understanding of the necessity of community and human connection in the times of crisis, and how people are able to function, even thrive in difficult times. My sister was in the Galilee on Yom Kippur. We had planned to travel to Turkey after the holidays. Instead, she met me on the kibbutz where I had lived for a year in 1970-71. There we were put to work doing tasks that were needed to keep the community going. These realizations about community and human connections are, of course, the foundation of SHJ, and we've heard this from Will and Rabbi Jeremy and others this holiday. I embraced them more in the year of the Yom Kippur War, but I did not hear about SHJ for 2 decades. I did not want to abandon my Judaism, as it was a very important part of my childhood and my family, but I needed to find a Judaism that reflected my beliefs. Equally important was figuring out how to reject the unquestioning allegiance to Israel that had been instilled in me growing up. My father spent his whole professional life working in Jewish communities around the country and for organizations that supported the priorities of the State of Israel. It was that Yom Kippur 52 years ago that set me on a quest to learn more about the complicated history of the peoples who live and have lived in Israel-Palestine, to study more about the creation of the State of Israel in the wake of Nazism, and to understand Israel's outsized power in the Western world. Although Israel won the Yom Kippur War, this war left me with a profound sense of unease. Over the years, my unease changed to rage, horror, and deep sadness. I did not go back to Israel for 37 years until I could do so with a better lens to evaluate the past, present, and future of this region that means so much to both Jews and Palestinians. I never mailed that letter to my Israeli friend. After October 7th, I did not know what to say to an Israeli with whom I had not communicated in many years. And my sister and I, we never went to Turkey. At this time of personal reflection, I am reminded that my embracing SHJ and my deep and intense disquietude about Israel are very much intertwined. I'm grateful to my family, my friends, and the Harnicks, you, those of you out there, who allow me to process my passionate feelings through much needed dialogue and respectful disagreements about Israel-Palestine. I'm also grateful that I can quell some of my anxiety and anger about the political and social upheaval around us with logical and thoughtful people. I wish you uplifting moments in these hard times, opportunities for meaningful protest, and a year of less disquietude. Shana Tova.
Thank you, Joy. Given the nature of the times, I suspect you know that we'll be talking about this more in about 2 pages. I'd like to invite up our third reader for today, Laura Narenberg, who has kids in our school and also was a JCS teacher one year, which I suspect she's glad she's not doing that this year.
I was trying to figure it out.
We call this section of our service Remembering Our Past, but it is really and probably should be called our memorial service for Yom Kippur Day. It has become common for American rabbis to talk about Yom Kippur as a dress rehearsal for death. Much of this thinking follows from the work of an American rabbi, Alan Liu, who wrote a book that I think almost every one of my colleagues in our area rereads this time of year. This is real and you are completely unprepared. Liu's reasons for this dress rehearsal for death are a little more apparent in much more traditional settings than our own. Practices like fasting, because the dead don't eat, avoiding most self-care rituals because the dead don't bathe, wearing white shrouds because traditional Jewish burial practices involve burial in a white shroud, and confessional texts because there's a kind of traditional last rites found in many traditional prayer books, and those last rites include a confessional that is also part of the traditional thick book Yom Kippur Day liturgy. It's an understandable connection to make. You just kind of look at the similarities. And in some ways, Alan Liu's book is kind of a modern Jewish classic. But the Yom Kippur as death dress rehearsal connection is one I've come to dislike over the years. Older Jewish texts that talk about Yom Kippur talk about it as a joyous day. Seems a little bit ironic. And turning Yom Kippur into a dress rehearsal for death distracts us from focusing on the more traditional idea that Yom Kippur is meant to encourage to work harder at life. And that's actually why we have a memorial service. When you look at the traditional mourner's Kaddish, It's not because we miss those we've lost necessarily, but because we draw on their memories to push us onward in their names and in their legacies. Our memorial service, really all of Yom Kippur, isn't only an instruction to remember, it is an instruction to live. And so we join together on the top of page 12. Laura will lead and we will respond with the first reading, "You Do Not Belong to You."
You belong to the universe, and you will be reclaimed.
By its constant, ever-changing heart,
Your wise body and your spacious mind.
when you are joyful or not,
Whether you are ready or not,
even as you turn away to be buffeted,
and set aloft a twig in the wind.
look around us, search above us. Below, behind, we stand in a great web of being joined together.
Let us praise, let us love the life we are lent, passing through us in the body of Israel and our own bodies.
Time flows through us like water. The past and the dead speak through us. We breathe out our children's children. Blessing.
Blessed is the earth from which we grow. Blessed is the life we are lent. Blessed are the ones who teach us. Blessed is the word that cannot say the story that shines through us and remains to shine, flowing past distant suns on the way to forever.
Let's say amen. Blessed is light, blessed is darkness, but blessed above all else is peace, which bears the fruits of knowledge on strong branches.
Peace that bears joy into the world, peace that enables love, peace over Israel everywhere. Blessed and holy is peace.
You've likely noticed when you walked in that we set up tables with small candles against the back wall of the room. These are intended for your use as memorial candles. While we cannot see or speak with those whose losses we grieve, we can still keep some of their light alive and bring it into the room with us today by lighting these candles. As we prepare to light memorial candles, I invite you to read and consider the two entries in the little supplemental packet that you were handed, labeled as Memorial Kavanah. Kavanah means intention or preparation in Hebrew, and the words of a kavanah like these can lend us additional focus and purpose as we go about the task of bringing some of the light of memory to our service today. The tables are in line at the back of the room. I'm going to trust that we are all able to form something like cogent lines and not run into each other and all of that. There are matches in the back. There are little ramekins. Put your burned out match in the ramekin. Please do not put your burned out ramekin on the match. The other way around, like that. Segments are a good idea. I agree. We will start on this third of the room, and then once that third is mostly cleared off, we'll have the center and then stage right. Sorry, stage left. Room right, stage left. Whichever group you all want to go with. Yeah. Let's please come back to our seats, including the choir member all the way in the back. I didn't say the name. Right, okay. Please, everyone, let's return to our seats as soon as we are able to. We are on the bottom of page 13, and where it says Oifen Pripachik, we won't actually be singing Oifen Pripachik. We will instead be singing We Remember Them, which has become of its own sort of a semi-universal additional Kaddish, reasons for which come through when you actually take a look at the lyrics for the song, which started as a well-known poem. So We Remember Them is, I wrote the page number, not the number in the hymnal, which, it's 13? Oh, okay, I wrote the hymnal number and the page number next to it. Very good. So it is number 13 in your hymnal section, and our choir will lead us. Jewish tradition recognizes several different stages in the mourning process. And they're basically broken out into 7 days, 30 days, 11 months, and then annual anniversaries of deaths. If you have lost someone you wish to remember within the last 7 days, please rise if you are able and willing to do so. If you have lost someone you wish to remember within the last 30 days and are able and willing to do so, please rise. If you have lost someone you wish to remember within the last 11 months, please rise. If you are marking the anniversary of a loss today, please rise. And I ask all others who are able to rise in support of those who are mourning. And we are on the bottom of page 13. Nitkadal v'nitkadash beruach ha'adam. Let us enhance and exalt ourselves in the spirit of humanity. Let us acclaim the preciousness of life. Let us show gratitude for life by approaching it with reverence. Let us embrace the whole world, even as we wrestle with its parts. Let us, each in our own way, take up our share in serving the world and seeking truth.
May our commitment to life help us to strengthen healing of spirit and peace of mind. May healing and peace permeate and comfort all of Israel and all of those who dwell on earth.
And let us say, Ken Yehi, may it be so. You may be seated. Thank you, Laura, for co-leading that part of our service. And I'd like to invite the choir to shift seating. I have to say, the ones that folks are sitting on out there seem more contoured than the ones that you all have over here. So I don't know if you just got an upgrade compared to these. Before we begin, I generally have avoided talking much and almost never during the high holidays about Israel, Palestine, and Gaza. I mention things a little bit. But the truth is, you don't need me to tell you what to think about it. And even if, for some reason you did, humanistic Judaism's principles involve recognizing, respecting, and honoring one another's individual abilities to reason, evaluate information, and make decisions for ourselves about matters large and small, and I plan to continue to follow those principles. Part of the point of humanistic Judaism is we don't hand you your opinion or tell you what to think from the front of the room. That is not the equivalent of say nothing. Today of all days, almost 2 years after October 7th, 2023, I'll be talking about war, anti-Semitism, genocide, and other issues, not in grotesque detail, but the topics will come up. And trauma is trauma, regardless of its source. And so this is a note that on this heavy day, what I'm going to talk about is also heavy, and you might disagree. Fine. Everybody's probably going to disagree with me at least a little bit about something. And that's okay. I'm not here to tell you what to think as much as to challenge the thinking that you do for yourself. I also told myself 2 years ago that I wouldn't give long talks at the high holidays, and I think I blew that commitment. Or I'm about to anyway. And that means you might want a break from all of this too. And any of that is fine. If you need to step out of the room, any of that is fine. And with that out of the way, I'm going to get out from behind this fakakta thing. We talk about morality a lot of the time as though they are rules. They're out there, written in something, engraved. They're always right, they're always firm, they're always knowable, and you can know them just by thinking. You poor, poor souls who took a philosophy class and had to study Immanuel Kant. I think that's too simple. I think morality and ethics really lie less in the rules that we make and more in the actions that we take and their effects and the stories we tell about that. And that's because two things can be true at once. Last Friday morning, so that you don't have to, I watched and listened to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's address before the General Assembly of the United Nations, and later that afternoon, I read poetry written by Gazans that was shared on a chat group for members of Rabbis for Ceasefire. And immediately upon reading one of the poems, I remembered two things can be true at once. Actually, it's really that I think one thing is true at once, but none of the voices I encountered last Friday said that. What did Netanyahu say? I'm telling you what he said, and I'm not telling you that what he said is factually accurate exactly. Among other things, he said that accusations of Israel being engaged in genocide, using an unspoken definition of the term that definitely excludes a lot of what the accepted international legal definition of genocide is, he said that those accusations were untrue. He cited a U.S. military expert on urban warfare who opined that Israel takes measures second to none, according to Netanyahu, in the world in attempting to avoid civilian casualties in its campaign in Gaza. He said that the Israeli military calls Gazan homes to tell residents to flee when they anticipate dropping bombs on their neighborhood. All of these things were true. Once you redefine the term genocide to meet Netanyahu's definition, it's true. Israel is not out to kill every Gazan. It is also true that the expert cited made the statement Netanyahu mentioned. And it's true that Israel calls Gazan homes telling residents to flee. What did the poem say? I read a bunch, and rather than read you poem after poem after poem, I'll read bits of a few, and you can look at the supplement for the full texts of two of the poems that I read. Lena Khalaf Tufaha wrote, "They call us now before they drop the bombs. The phone rings and someone who knows my first name calls and says in perfect Arabic, 'This is David.' And in my stupor of sonic booms and glass-shattering symphonies still smashing around in my head, I think, do I know any Davids in Gaza? They call us now to say, 'Run. You have 58 seconds from the end of this message. Your house is next.' They think of it as some kind of wartime courtesy. We aren't trying to kill you. It doesn't matter that you can't call us back to tell us the people we claim to want aren't in your house. It doesn't matter who you are. Prove you're human. Prove you stand on two legs. Run." Zaina Azam wrote, "Write my name on my leg, mama. Use the black permanent marker with the ink that doesn't bleed. If it gets wet, the one that doesn't melt if it's exposed to heat. Write my name on my leg, mama. Make the lines thick and clear. Add your special flourishes so I can take comfort in seeing my mama's handwriting when I go to sleep." Why names in permanent marker? So that when the bombs fall on their home, quote, our legs will tell our story how there was nowhere for us to run. The permanent marker story, reported on by CNN in October 2023. These things, all of them, are true. Israel calls, and sometimes people flee. They don't really have anywhere to go, but sometimes they flee. And perhaps Netanyahu was telling the truth during his speech when he said the civilian combatant death ratio in Gaza is the lowest one seen in modern wars. I'm skeptical, because numbers and what they mean are two different matters, but Israel does call, and sometimes people do flee. It is all true. But none of it is the truth I was thinking of. The truth is, Netanyahu thinks he's on the right side of things. The truth is also that Hamas thinks they are on the right side of things. The two women who wrote the poems I read from think that they're on the right side of things, or at least they're ordinary people and they wouldn't or shouldn't face harm from people who truly are on the right side of things. Few people think of themselves as the bad guy, and however far someone may fall, whatever evil they may commit, the ability of the human mind to tell a story that provides self-absolution is, frankly, astonishing. And you can take that idea to frightening lengths when you look at human history. Ethics is, after all, about actions, effects, and the stories we tell about them. Put another way, Nazis died at Nuremberg shouting Heil Hitler. Yom Kippur is called the Day of Atonement, but atonement's an English word invented in the 1500s, and it's trying to translate the word Kippurim. Atonement literally means at one-ment. The process of atonement set forth in the Torah, the idea is meant to restore, to put back at one the moral relationship between the Israelites and Yahweh. While not necessarily far off metaphorically, this is not exactly what the Hebrew word means. It seems to be related to Aramaic, Akkadian, and Arabic words meaning wash away, purify, or cover, or hide. And in biblical Hebrew, it can mean pacify, cover over, appease, make propitiation, or ransom, or uproot. When someone thinks they're in the right, and they usually do, they see no need to do what atonement really means. And we have a lot of people in our world who think that they're in the right and end up harming others, wronging them in that process. Regardless of whether their ideas are right at the time, they believe themselves to be right. The irony is we're all in the wrong all the time, and even when we do the right thing, because doing the right thing often means hurting someone else. If I apologize to you for one thing and not for another, I've done the right thing, and you might well notice I didn't apologize for the other, which compounds the harm. If I don't know about the thing I didn't apologize for because I didn't know you were harmed in the first place, then I didn't really do something wrong in not apologizing, but you're still wronged. So let's assume there is someone in your home who has done something that is definitely evil, and I call and tell you there are 58 seconds to leave your home, and then I'll bomb it because I want to get that person. I've done one thing right. I've told you to leave and at least tried to avoid taking your life, while also committing a horrible wrong. If I bombed your home, there's only so much comfort to be had in the knowledge that you are still alive. As Gazan poet Doa Kalhut wrote, "My family held out for news of our own house." What's the sense in a person without a house or a house without its owner, my father would say. Until we heard that we too had lost a part of our home, and because we knew the grief that takes the shape of silence, we said nothing. And what if you hadn't decided to leave? Or you couldn't leave? Because 58 seconds isn't enough time to wake some in your home and carry others out. Of course, 58 seconds isn't really all that much time to take any action anyway, right? Does a call 58 seconds before an air raid really acquit anyone of anything? Great and small, we are always doing both right and wrong. I could stop here, and I could say, it's so complicated. I lack the wisdom to understand fully. I lack the knowledge to understand fully. I don't live in the situation I'm talking about or thinking about. I can't pick sides, but... And then pick a side by default, or not pick a side, or just throw up my hands in frustration. Or I suppose any number of other things, but I didn't think of those other things. And that would be justifiable. I could tell that story. Human relationships are impossibly complex. Life is hard. We can't know what's in someone's head when they decide to do something. We overstate the effects of reason on how we make decisions, which are often made very quickly at a gut level with the reasoning coming afterward. Ethics and morality can seem impossibly complicated, probably because the hardest cases are impossibly complicated, and we are impossibly complex creatures who also are deeply flawed and deeply limited in what we can accomplish. Which is why the stories we tell matter. I've told you the story about what I did part of last Friday. I've told you some of Netanyahu's story, and Lena Khalaf Tufaha's story, and Zaina Azam's story, and Doa Kalut's story, and I've walked up to the line over and over and over again of telling you where I stand on Israel and Gaza and Palestine, and I still haven't done it. So here we are. The story that I would tell, one that doesn't go out trying to look for root causes or to figure out who's right in a cosmic scheme that I don't believe in the first place, is that a government is being led by people who talk not about two states but one. They commit violence with the hope that those harmed will leave or will die or will cease to have a separate identity. They displace others from their homes in service of that hope. I said a government, but it isn't just one government, right? Has Hamas committed acts of genocide? Yes. Has Israel? Yes. Since October 7th, 2023? Yes. I could cite authorities for it. 86% of the membership of the International Association for Genocide Scholars, including luminaries in the field of Holocaust studies like Omar Bartov, but that wouldn't be my story, that'd be theirs. I'm a pacifist. Pacifists tend not to be popular, and I'm not expecting you to agree with my pacifism. I'd like to think that the idea that two sides have engaged in genocidal behavior is so clear that it's beyond debate, but I understand not everyone will agree. So I'm just going to tell you the story, what I came to believe and why I think it matters today. For some Israeli leaders, including several cabinet ministers, the present state of things is a desired result, or at least is a desired midpoint in a longer process that sees Gaza and the West Bank pulled back into a greater Israel. In his speech before the UN last Friday, Netanyahu used the phrase, "what you call here the West Bank," which he called, without a qualifier, as right-wing nationalists do in Israel, Judea and Samaria. Netanyahu's definition of genocide encompasses only the idea of totally wiping out a population of people. And in that sense, he would say, Israel has not committed genocide. His redefinition of the term genocide away from the standard international legal definition, which contemplates acts of and includes ethnic cleansing by means other than violence. You can simply try to eliminate a portion of a population by forcing it out of the way. His redefining of genocide in front of the UN General Assembly wasn't an accident, in particular because it is the UN that created the international legal definition of genocide he decided not to use. Do I think Israel's actions are genocidal? However much it pains us at this point, 2 years into a war that has leveled much of Gaza City, displaced large swaths of Gaza's population, and is openly discussed by Israeli cabinet ministers as a starting point for a total seizure of Gaza and a wiping away of its people, I don't think there's any other answer I could really reach other than yes, Israel's actions are genocidal. So are Hamas's. We can spend all the time we want saying that when someone is oppressed, you shouldn't be surprised when they fight back, but there's fighting back and there's murdering people in their homes and at music festivals. These are matters of degree in some ways. But when you want to seize land and remove its current occupants, undoing their culture and replacing it with your own, we have a word for that. Our own government is not free of guilt in this way either. We have a president who has run about talking about removing the entire population from Gaza in order to redevelop it like it's the old Fontainebleau Hotel in North Miami Beach, in need of some sprucing up and gentrification. Were that to come to fruition, by the way, there's a very good argument that the real estate investment scheme would also meet the UN definition of genocide. All the while, US defense companies sold and sell weapons, ammunition, guidance systems, and other technology to Israel to sustain its efforts against Hamas and to expand its operations farther into the Middle East. If every life is precious, there really is no just war. There are, I think, the stories we tell ourselves to make things feel justifiable, and the lengths we go to avoid harm while acknowledging that even one lost life is a deep, deep failure. All of that's a painful story to tell. Why did I tell it? I don't think you need to be a pacifist to see how deeply imperfect we are, and I don't think you need to agree with me on Israel-Palestine, war, geopolitics, or any other political issue to see the challenge inherent in Yom Kippur's moral call. If we place human autonomy and dignity above all else, there is no purely right thing. Because we can't help but trample other people at least a little bit, even in the simplest of transactions. That's the disquiet of morality. We are always right, and we are always wrong, at every turn. What we have are our actions and their effects, and the stories we tell about them. We can't perfectly appease everyone. We can't perfectly atone with everyone. We can't even know everything we've done to others. Everything always has question marks. There's a tendency many rabbis have, and I'm not innocent of it, in the past at any rate, to soft pedal what the high holidays are about by talking about the word teshuvah as meaning to return. We cite rabbinic texts that say things like, but tzedakah, tefillah, and teshuvah soften the harshness of the decree, and we say that teshuvah means returning to the right path. And it does. But it also means to respond. When we see a thing we think is wrong, we feel the need to respond. And there's no end to what we might respond to. Ultimately, the only real way we have to understand why we might or might not act in a particular way comes down to the stories we tell. It's down to how we respond. This is why on Rosh Hashanah I talked about the idea of love as the actual center of humanistic Judaism. Not philosophy, not idea, not system, but a feeling that is also something more. And so oddly, I don't think it matters that much, to me anyway, whether you're a Zionist or not, or whether you think Bibi is right about the geopolitics of his actions, even if he were right about everything. People who have never lifted a hand against the state of Israel have died, and you can't really make that right. Whether you think everyone has met the definition of genocide or no one has. And so I'm not asking you, rather, I'm not telling you what to think about Israel-Palestine, other than to ask you to see how much hurt there is and to urge you to respond. Not because you're Jewish or connected to Jewish community, but because you're a human. You'll decide for yourself in what imperfect, inevitably compromised way you're going to do that. That's the teshuvah here, is to find a way to respond and to do so. Do something, see the effect, and tell your story. As our Rosh Hashanah speaker Joe Palka said, whatever you do, do something. It is not going to be perfect. It is not going to end the war. But it will be, and that will be at bottom wrong, and in the fact that you responded at all, right. And amidst the information, the emotion, and the disinformation of now, amidst what Yom Kippur has always been an imperfect way of resetting the table as we move into the Jewish New Year, the tension of right and wrong, that's the one true thing that was missing last Friday. Shana Tova. like to invite the choir back up to their seats and invite up our final reader, Piper Tabachman. Less than 2 months ago, Piper and Piper's brother Everett finished their B'nai Mitzvah studies with Machar at River Road Unitarian at about 10 o'clock on the Beltway, as opposed to our current 12-ish. There is a time, we're on page 14. There is a time in every generation when some Jews are afraid, when some Jews are threatened, when some Jews are attacked because they are Jews. But that is not our only story.
There are stories of survival, stories of success, stories of new beginnings, stories of laying down new roots, because another generation becomes the future.
I do not stand up and ask for a leap of faith to the unknown, to the unknowable, to believe with me in anything but one undeniable fact. The future is coming, and we must leap into it.
Carrying our jars of fallen tears, our pockets filled with Hebrew letters, and our hope as the new day dawns.
One day, Rabbi Yochanan was on a journey and he noticed a man planting a carob tree. He asked him, "How long will it take for this tree to bear fruit?" 70 years, the man replied. He then asked him, "Are you sure you will be alive in 70 years?" And the man replied, "I found the world ready with previously planted carob trees. As my forefathers planted them for me, I will plant them for my children." Today, we stop to consider what is growing in the orchard of our lives. What have we planted that generations beyond ourselves can reap?
Today, we stop to consider the impact of our lives on future generations, knowing that in time, we too will be ancestors.
Today, I stand back and survey my land. Today, I tend to the soil of my life. Today, I plant so that generations to come can reap. We join together on the top of page 16 with Na'aseh Shalom, which is number 8 in your hymnal section. There are many versions of Na'aseh Shalom floating around, and there are all of the Ya'aseh Shalom versions floating around, and I know that I'm going to hear about 8 different ones coming from you when you sing. Sing the one that comes to your mind. I will do my best simply not to confuse everyone.
We learn little from spoken rules and written advice. Words can inspire us, but rarely do they transform our lives. We learn from people, from the living example of living teachers, a father's integrity, a mother's warm encouragement, a famous leader's determination.
People enter our lives and guide us by what they do, not by what they say. They embody the ideal and make it real enough for us to understand.
Keeps alive the example of great men and women who taught us through action. It also preserves the behavior of more modest guides who touched our lives in simpler ways.
We too shall be examples in a future world that we shall never visit. We are teaching others for a tomorrow that is beyond our grasp. Our actions will move others along after our words are forgotten.
We are the children of love. We are the heirs of generous hope. Parents and peers, family and friends are forever joined to us by bonds of affection and mutual experience.
The pain of separation never completely disappears, nor does the fond memory of their lives. They are constantly with us even when we do not think of them. Their influence brings us here today, that we may honor them by sharing our memories silently as a community of caring friends.
Now is the time to do what we need to do. Now is the time to think about our lives, to think about our behavior, to think about the people we admire and love.
Now is not quite the moment to finish this reading. We've had a Kaddish, we've had Na'aseh Shalom, which means we're missing the third piece of the end of any synagogue service, announcements. So I'd like to invite up Will David to do our closing announcements for the high holidays.
Tonight at 6:30, we're invited to a Yom Kippur Break the Fast. Doesn't mean you have to have fasted. It's a social event that Beth High has invited us to. It's at the River Road Unitarian Universalist Congregation. If you plan to come, and we hope you do, please use the sign-up genius in the Machar Weekly News, as it's a potluck and you can indicate what you want to bring. Our Sukkot celebration is on October the 5th from 10 to 1 at Cabin John Regional Park, shelters J and K. We'll be with our partner congregations there. There's a sign-up genius link in the weekly news. We hope to see you there. And lastly, if you are visiting us and have children in grades K through 7, we have parents here with kids in our Jewish Cultural School. They have name tags on that says, "Ask me about JCS," and available to talk with anyone who are considering JCS for their child and are happy to share their experiences. I'd like to invite Jess Gottlieb to come up for a minute and say a few words about that.
Hi, everyone. I, along with a few friends and congregants, realized at the end of Rosh Hashanah services last week that we had wanted to make a better effort in welcoming new families and prospective members. And so we're all just wearing name tags that say, "Ask me about JCS." If you have a name tag on that says, "Ask me about JCS," will you please raise your hand? So we are the folks happy to chat. We all have children of different ages in the program. And as I'm sure you all did, we all found Machar for some similar, some different reasons, and are happy just to talk about parts of that journey and what we think our kids are getting out of JCS and what we are also getting by attending adult ed and the different opportunities that that provides for us all to be together. If you have any friends, perhaps you have friends that are considering, maybe you are past that point in your life, or perhaps you have grandchildren they're considering, please approach us. Happy to pass on names and numbers and happy just to talk informally to anyone who has questions as well. Thank you.
And now we have a few thank yous. Thanks to Jess Gottlieb for spearheading the Ask Me About JCS initiative. Check-in and security, Elaine and Barry Dancis, Emily Blake, Myrna Frank, and Howard Dubowitz. Thanks also to Dunya Hecht for being vigilant with our security needs. For our family service, our leader, Rachel Hanadari, our chauffeur blower, Solomon Sandler, and pianist, Laura Breutman. For our main service greeters, Marty David, no relation, and Joanna Good. Main service seating coordinator, Kathy Bergman. Child care coordinator, Sharon Rosenberg. Pianist, Adam Nam. Choir coordinators, Joy Markowitz and Joanna Pratt. Our choir members, Keith Campbell-Rosen, Misha Clive, Barry Dancis, Greg Gryza, Joy Markowitz, Joanna Pratt, Dory Reisman, and Joyce Rosenthal. Our speaker, Joy Markowitz. Our readers today, Marlene Cohen, Logan Elliott, Laura Nuremberg, and Piper Tabachman. Our main service shofar blowers, Solomon Sandler and Everett Tabachman. Our high-definition photographer, Mark Maurer. And two very special thank yous to our incomparable coordinator, Nadine Wetstein. I don't know that everyone fully appreciates what Nadine does. For High Holidays, she coordinates speakers and service participants and the food for Rosh Hashanah and all the service logistics and planning and even the least details with Cedar Lane. Thank you. And finally, to our rabbi, Jeremy Cordell, for his leadership and guidance through difficult issues, and for leading us so capably and thoughtfully through these high holidays. We are lucky to have you, and we deeply appreciate what you do for Machar. Shana Tova.
Our strength, to deepen our understanding, to discover our power. Now is the time to choose first things first, to place our family, our education, and our health above mere fun and play.
Now is the time to become the masters of our lives and to rule our feelings. Now is the time to discover our excuses and to take responsibility for all that we do.
Let us say together, we will be honest about our behavior. We will protect our family. We will make learning important. We will guard our health. We will control our feelings. We will take responsibility for all that we do. While our shofar blowers are coming up for the last time, the choir will lead us in Aniva Atah, which is number 26 in the hymnal section. translation challenge we have to meet here. It goes like this. All of you, please find song number 31 in your hymnal. We're going to have one Tekiah Gedolah, the big shofar blow. And once we pass out from not enough air to keep the shofars blowing, if the choir would lead us in Od Yavo Shalom as we wrap up our service. Tekiah Gedolah.